If you're from a Western nation or from a country that is heavily influenced by propaganda and politics, you've probably heard about how big and scary and evil the DPRK is, aka North Korea. You know, those stories about how Kim Jong un randomly murdered 30 teenagers for watching South Korean dramas? Or what about the video of the two teenage boys fessing up to their crimes of listening to K pop? My God, the citizens of the DPRK have to risk their lives just to get any information from the outside. And it's apparently even harder to get information out of the DPRK because of how secretive they are. Yet, every day there's some bullshit article about how oppressed the citizens of the DPRK are and how Kim Jong un just loves to massacre people based on his personal preferences. Sanctions have been enacted by the UN and USA onto North Korea, as well as other nations who have placed sanctions onto North Korea. And no, North Korea cannot get rid of their nukes. They know what could possibly happen to them if they did, especially considering the history of what the USA and the UN did to North Korea during the Korean War and after. It's very possible if North Korea loses their nukes, then they will lose their lives, or at the least, their land. As long as other nations have nuclear power and claim it defense, then North Korea deserves to have that same respect, especially considering they haven't used those weapons on any other nations. They've kept to themselves. So, I'm just going to give a brief rundown of Western involvement during the Korean War. So, during the early 1950s, the United Nations Command, UNC, was established to support South Korea against North Korea during the Korean War up until now. And fun fact, apparently Germany just recently joined the United Nations Command, which is interesting. To continue, during the early 1950s, United States Air Forces carried out by the command of the UNC to essentially destroy the entire country of North Korea. Napalm and multiple other explosives were carried out for 3 years onto North Korean land, where more than 85% of its civilian infrastructure was destroyed, which is making North Korea the most bombed nation in human history. Laos being, I think, the second. But yeah, there was reported to be 1.5 million casualties per person, and this includes death, missing people, and injuries. North Korea has only been able to recover its land and infrastructure by isolating the country away from imperialism and adopting its Juche ideology. And even then, North Korea is the fourth most sanctioned country in the world, right behind Syria, Iran, and of course, Russia being number one. So, who decided these sanctions? That's right, it was the good old boys sitting pretty in the United Nations and United States offices who bully other countries into bullying North Korea because they want to protect their will brother South Korea. Now, I'm not trying to be all like, oh, North Korea is the greatest country in the world and most democratic and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't live there, I've never lived there, and I don't have a desire to live there. Even from the non sensational, non negative perspectives of people who have lived or visited North Korea, it just doesn't sound like it necessarily be my vibe, even though I've heard great things about, their agriculture and, their agriculture engineering. You know, like I said, I'm not trying to say that North Korea is a better country than these other countries in America or your South Korea or whatever. I'm just saying that they deserve the same respect as all these other countries, especially considering they have done far less to civilians around the world. When I say far less, I mean far less. And look, I know we all look at North Korea and poke fun at how alien the country feels to us. and how it looks like they praise the Kims, similar to how we praise the founding fathers or religious figures. But my God, the worldwide brainwashing of North Korea is a threat despite not doing shit except keeping to themselves is fucking outrageous. I'm sure there are citizens of North Korea that would rather live somewhere else, just like I have heard of stories of people who have left North Korea only to go back because they can't stand South Korea's laws and cultures and the constraints that are placed on them because they are from North Korea. That's something else that people forget, especially with a lot of these, lies that a lot of the South Korean media will put out about North Korea. They act like, oh, if you defect from North Korea, like you're automatically protected. It's the opposite. All I'm saying is there's a difference in criticizing a nation because of documented information versus criticizing a nation because we don't know what's going on. Therefore, we're just going to believe anything made out of thin air without any tangible proof because we want to laugh at an East Asian country. I also just want to point out, as much as I may say shit about, the actions of the American government, it's not as if I would want to live in any other country. I'm familiar with the culture here. I know how difficult my life would become if I had to get readjusted in a whole other country with a whole other culture. Shit, I'm barely able to get readjusted where I'm living now, and I've only been here for 2 years. But because I feel every single person on this earth deserves to be alive with all of their biological needs met, I am very critical of actions and laws used to oppress, harm, or even kill others. And no, I don't think it's right to start wars with countries just because we don't agree with their culture or constitution, or we think and assume bad things are going on without actual tangible evidence once again. For fuck's sake. So, yay, finally, I have a somewhat short video. I didn't want to go too long on this topic, but I've linked some resources to kind of, give like a different perspective on, North Korea, just because there's just so much, woo woo out there. So, yeah, okay, I'm sure I triggered enough people with this video, which is never my goal, honest. I just wanted to give some insight on why the DPRK is essentially justified in denouncing the UN and not getting rid of their nuclear power. I know for a lot of you, it's the norm to laugh at articles claiming Kim Jong-un sniped a child for playing the wrong note on a violin, but let's all be a bit more critical about the things we choose to believe in. That's all.